Welcome to People Are Everything, the show where I ask my guests, who are the 5 people that have shaped the person you are today? And today we have Felicity Reed. Felicity is an accomplished psychotherapist. More than that, she's dedicated her entire life to helping people who are usually at the fringes of society and, you know, those less able to access the kind of services that maybe some people here listening take for granted. So it's more than just a job for her. It's very much a calling. We get into how she started her career with some of the most vulnerable people, the people that find themselves homeless. And right through to what else do we talk about? Oh, how to be a good gay. So I think you're going to love this one. I certainly did. There's a lot of wisdom here with Felicity. So sit back and enjoy Felicity Reed. Hello, Felicity. Welcome to People Are Everything. How are you, first of all?
I'm wonderful, thank you. As I mentioned, I've just been for a run, so I'm on fine form. I feel very smug having got myself out despite the fact it's raining.
Well, I'm intimidated by you on 3 levels already. One, you're very colourful. I don't do colour, Felicity. Look at me. I'm so neutral. Neutral tones everywhere you go. In my home, on my clothing. I just don't do colour, and you're an absolute flourish of colour. So that's 1. 2, books. Everyone knows. If you listen to my podcast, you know I'm very intimidated by people who have lots of books. So you're surrounded by the things. And 3, running. I can't do the running thing, Felicity. My little legs don't work. I can do lots of other things, but running is not my thing. So tell me, what was your morning run like this morning?
Well, it was very rainy, but it's really funny, isn't it? Because when you say that, I think to myself, I often think I have ADHD, and you can often spot the ADHD kid in the room because we are like often a riot of colour. So I think that's kind of, and again, like with my running, I think that, I'm a psychotherapist that really specialises in working with ADHD. It's really good. It's one of the things that stops me getting ants in my pants is getting out and going for a really good run in the morning. And if I hadn't done that, I dread to think how this was going to go.
You'd be bouncing off the walls.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, hopefully we're going to get into all of that in a moment, because I'd love to ask you a bit more about your work. But I'm just trying to figure out, first of all, how we met. Were we introduced by someone? Because we've got a lot of mutual friends on the old LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But who actually introduced us? Or did we just say hello?
So I think we did say hello. And I also think that Jindy, I think you did a podcast with Jindy, who is a very, very dear friend of mine and a co-soul journeyer, and the beautiful one of his besties, Mark McCartney, as well. And I did a podcast with him, and he's another beautiful soul quester. So I think, with that courage calls to courage everywhere, people with kindred spirits and on similar soul journeys will often connect. So I think that's really how. So it's lovely to actually connect properly with you.
Yay! Oh, likewise. Oh, I love being I'd love to be on a soul journey. I think I might be on one. I also think I might have ADHD, Felicity, to be honest.
Come on out. Yeah, it's lovely.
Let's join the club. It was, in all joking aside, I think somebody close to me said, well, why don't you just do a little test? And I know everyone does these online tests. And I was like, oh, all right then. And I did it. Of course, it came out. Absolutely. And then I think there was a deeper test, like a really proper one, like several pages worth that somebody else was doing. And I thought, oh, I'll have a little look at that. And I looked at it and went, oh, yeah, probably. But I'm a kid from the 70s. We were just lively and spirited, and we thought slightly differently to the rest of the room, and we solved things super fast. And I don't know. I think my if I've got ADHD, then good, because I like it. I like me very much. I think I'm all right. So yeah, I mean that is how we probably were introduced, is the lovely Jindy and Mark, who've become, good friends of mine now. And one of the benefits of doing this is I meet some very, very cool people like yourself. And also what's intimidating about you, I hope you don't mind me keep talking about that, but it's like you've got this incredible life. I mean, you've dedicated your entire life to your craft, not just lately, but I look back over your sort of history everything from, forensic mental health support, psychotherapy, ADHD specialism. I mean, there's a whole, there is a life story and a deep, deep commitment from the beginning. This is what you were going to do. So can you tell me a bit more about that, and also what drew you to it in the first place? What made you say, right, I'm going to dedicate my entire life? And I love it. I think you had a line like something like, I want to remove psychological disadvantage or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
So I guess like my life has like two, first of all, my hobbies are my work. The work that I do is my soul journey, and the people that I support, every single one of them, I carry them in my heart. And, when I started in my field, the word love was like a dirty word. Um, I remember being a relatively experienced mental health practitioner, and I wanted to specialize in forensics. And I remember applying to do a placement, even though I was already working in the field. I applied to do a placement in a secure setting. And at the start, and they said, yes, we'd love your experience here. And I applied, and at the start of my CV, I said, I love working with people who are, finding their way through some of the trickiest personality difficulties and life experiences. And the person came back, the head of the placement came back and said, to say that you love this work is very unboundaried, and it displays embarrassing naivety. And I thought, oh, okay.
Those words, an embarrassing naive.
Embarrassing naivety. He said, don't put that in any other application that you're making, and we will have to not look at your application as a result. And that kind of blew my mind then. And I guess like that's my therapeutic practice is absolutely predicated on love and appreciation of the person that I'm walking with. And I kind of think to myself, tread softly if you tread on my dreams. If you can't open your heart and your mind to be transformed by the person that you're witnessing and supporting, I don't really think you have a right to be in the room. If I have, or at least I don't, if I get to the point with somebody that I think I don't like you, or I don't see the dignity and the courage and the beauty in what you're doing, and the struggles that you've got, and the incredible resilience that you bring. If I can't do that, it's time for me to bow out, because my job is like honoring the human soul, honoring, facilitating, and yeah. So I came to it, I think, because of my own difficulties, as most therapists do, right? I really struggled so hard coming up through my teenage years, with lots of sort of disruptive behavior in schools, always getting in trouble. I remember I went to public schools and found it very difficult to fit in. I was frequently in all the schools I went to. I was the most disciplined, the most in trouble, often girl in the school in all of those settings. So I was like this little crazy kid, and with so many experiences of sort of like shame and difficulty and darkness, and not knowing where to put those experiences and feelings, and uh, and that led me to hitting an early point in my 20s where I just could not go on anymore. I just couldn't keep going. I hit a wall. The things that I've been trying to do to cope, which had often been to sort of try and pretend that I was more able, more calm, more secure than I was, those things had just boxed me into a corner, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was terribly anxious. And so I went into therapy, and there began, and I think it's the wonderful thing. There's a reason why I love therapy, is that people come into therapy 99% of the time because they're like, for similar reasons, I boxed into a hole. I just need this pain to stop. And the extraordinary beauty that therapy offers you is that, as I was saying to a client yesterday, you come out of the storm a different person than the one who walked in. It starts off like you want the pain to stop. But the journey that you can go on if you open yourself up to it is a transformative, hugely transformative journey of the soul into the transformation of your relationships, the transformation of your involvement and engagement in the world. to all the beauty and all the pain of the world. But yeah, so that's kind of where I started. But I think it's really important to say, so I've got two passions. One is that therapeutic desire to, for myself and for others, to sort of open up to the world humbly and be astonished by it, and to help other people to enter that space as well. But the other one is as important, maybe even more important, which is tackling the systemic injustice and inequalities that mean that that is open to some people and very much not all people. So at the same time that I was training, that I began to train in psychotherapy, I was also working in homeless hostels, in criminal justice, in drug and alcohol settings, and beginning to learn from, honor, and support, and to work alongside people who had not had the educational privileges, the social privileges, the relational privileges, and to realize that often those people were sharper, brighter, more creative, more inspiring, and yet were being held back by stuff that had absolutely nothing to do with them. And so I guess like those are my twin things. So my passion throughout my career has been bringing clinical expertise into communities to people who that might be excluded from, but also bringing some of the expertise of the community into clinical spaces where often we can be very arid, we can be very blunt, we can be very impersonal. We can come out with extraordinary comments like that guy made to me about, never come with love. It's embarrassing, naive. That's insane, isn't it? So I believe that I have as much to learn or more to learn from the people that I serve. So I have two things now. One is I have a private practice psychotherapy, where I do beautiful work and probably get even more out of it than the people I support, helping people really like come into their own, come into the world. And then the other work is absolutely as important to me. And, my amazing partner, who I'm going to talk about later, is care experienced, has faced some of the most horrendous social injustice in the world, is a far better person than me. And so that is my other life work and passion, which is highlighting and undoing the systemic inequality. That keeps some people on top and some people very much not.
It's really interesting because we all know about social inequality, and that gap is widening by the minute. And we think about it mostly in socio-economic things like money. But I never really thought until you spoke then about the difference, the inequality of psychotherapy and the sort of mental health support. I mean, you know anecdotally that there's months and months and months of waiting lists on the NHS. You hear that in the news here and there. But as someone who's, I'm extremely fortunate that I can reach out and just go on counselling.com and find someone if I want to.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm extremely fortunate to have found my own therapist through doing that. Just a little anecdote in my book, I talk about, I just chose the first one on the list because I was being quite, difficult with myself about choosing that person. So her surname just begins with A. So I just chose her. And because I know it's terrible, isn't it? I didn't put any effort in because it was almost like I was making myself do something I didn't want to do. So that was me misbehaving. But, I did have the luxury of that. I could just go online, pick someone, pay them. They talk to me. I get hugely, better. As you say, you go in with pain and you come out completely revitalized. And that's not accessible to many, many people. It's very much a privileged position to be in. And that inequality of mental well-being, particularly if every other part of your life is challenged. I mean, even if you haven't got mental health issues, you've got economic issues. Money will be on your mind all the time. You'll have job insecurity. You'll have transience in your life. You may have, difficult relationships and things like. There's all kinds of stuff that just keeps you down anyway, and let alone anything that's related to mental well-being. So good for you. I hope you're being well looked after, Felicity, because we need you functioning well in the world.
Well, and I suppose that's one of the things. So one of the things I also do is I do a lot of training in how to in stuff exactly like how do you manage burnout? How do you understand it? But absolutely, you know, often people think, and one of the things I do is I do little Instagrams which teach people tiny evidence-based tools and bits of knowledge and insight in terms of taking control of your mental health. And one of the reasons that I do that is so that people who might not have the cash
I can reach
brain
you. Yeah.
can understand it. But one of the things we know about burnout is, or I know about burnout, and I teach about burnout, is burnout originates, you know, often people think the way of keeping safe from difficult experiences is to compartmentalize, like that guy did in the medium secure unit. He was like, don't have love, you know, separate your feelings from people, these people. And actually, that's not the way. That is a hiding to nothing. To protect yourself from burnout, we can shut off for a moment. But if we keep shutting off, what we do is we drive burnout. That, you know, burnout and burnout is driven by that compartmentalizing, by that shutdown.
Yeah.
So my
hard work.
Yeah, my response is like, be open-hearted, man. Bring your higher self. And yes, I open up to all the joy and all the pain, and my life is all the fuller for it, you know, and all the learning that comes from those things. So I find that a very nurturing, beautiful space. And I think with my ADHD hyperfocus, I'd be a little bit more exhausted by by stuff that was like less emotionally involved, if that makes sense.
Well, and you'd be faking it all the time, which would be terribly exhausting. You know, that need to protect. I totally get what you mean. You know, that need to protect yourself by being someone different in that room.
Yeah,
it means you're working twice as hard in that room.
Yeah.
So no, I totally get what you.
Yeah.
And no one's winning. No one's winning because the person in front of you isn't getting the whole you anyway. And probably if you're in a terrible state, the most important thing is that you feel that the person opposite you is on your side and actually does have emotional connection with you, that actually cares about your well-being, wants you to be better, wants you to win. So no, I think your approach is absolutely spot on. And I'm very impressed by how many outlets for your craft and your expertise and yourself that you have, you know, public speaking, you know, working in the criminal sector, psychotherapy, one-on-one, helping people, you know, who are disadvantaged. It's a life's work. It's not just what you do, it's obviously who you are, and you found your thing. And I love that. I love it when I see people doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. It makes me happy. Well, listen, should we get into it? Before we do, I always want to know how you found making the list, because I haven't been forced into doing this yet, but I know it's coming. And I tried it the other day on the fly and I couldn't do it. So I feel really bad that I make other people do it. But I'm sure you'll all get your revenge eventually. But how did you find choosing your 5? Was it hard?
Well, I would love to know. I would love to do your list. What a cool thing to do. I love that. Definitely. Was it hard? No, it wasn't that hard, actually. And it was really nice. I thought, God, what a beautiful, I mean, I love your podcast, you know, and I thought, what a bloody beautiful opportunity to get to say, to honor and acknowledge people who are powerful and beautiful people in your life. What a privilege, what a gift that you bring to the people that you're interviewing. That's what I thought. I thought was lovely. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Oh, listen, I just want to share something that happened to me this morning along those lines before we start. I do this for multiple reasons. You're absolutely right. I do it to spread a real positive message about people that matter in our lives. And occasionally, people who are on these recordings send the recordings to somebody that they've chosen. And occasionally they write back and go, wow. And I got that this morning. I got an email this morning from someone who'd sent one of their 5, the actual recording, and they came back and they said, and it was a teacher. And I think this happens often. We seem to get a lot of teachers on this show, but I don't know how many people have actually gone back and tried to find that original teacher and say, hey, this is a recording of me talking about you and saying all these great things. And this teacher came back and absolutely made their day. And this person's now retired from teaching, but it meant so much to them that they were spoken about in that way some 20, 30 years later. And I just absolutely made my day.
Oh.
I just thought, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. So one of the reasons I'm doing this anyway. So good. I'm hoping there's people on your list that you're going to send this to and make their day. So let's give it a go. So who do you want to start with as number 1?
I think number one that I'd want to start with is my partner, Rachel. She, as I said, is, I mean, she's, if you haven't already followed her on LinkedIn, please do. She's one of the most brave, powerful, beautiful people in the world, and she awe-inspires me. And I guess the reason why I want to thank her is because she teaches me to be endlessly ambitious, to be endlessly, and I don't mean career ambitious, I mean endlessly ambitious for the very best. Rach came up through a lifetime of the most profound and far-reaching harm that a human being can experience. And she went into care when she was 14 and then unfortunately suffered extensive further harm, which is often the case. But somehow this extraordinary woman has the most beautiful kindness, the most gentle nature, the most generous, reflective nature. And she teaches the rest of the world how to be gentle, generous, and beautiful. And something that she's really taught me is, again and again, don't settle. Don't settle. Be ambitious. So even though the world has asked her and invited her to settle so many times, she says, never settle. Let's aim for the best. And yeah, I find that so profound and awe-inspiring. And she's, and the bravery that requires, her bravery is phenomenal. And she teaches me how to be brave, you know, how to, and she's had to learn how to be brave in the face of the most extensive and oppressive human harm. And somehow that's what she is.
Way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Barack Obama talks about the audacity of hope. And Rach, we were just talking about this before the podcast, actually. And Rach said to me, the thing is, Felicity, if I'd asked, as a care experience person, you are continually invited, people continually say to you, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong to end up in care? She was repeatedly told, you won't make it past the age of 30. She was told that explicitly and repeatedly. She was told she'd be in prison. She was told that she'd be dead. She was told that by the people who harmed her, and she was told that by the system. Somehow, she didn't end up fueled by anger. Somehow, she didn't end up fueled by pain and harm. She has stood outside that and defined herself completely differently. And
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we do training together. And frequently, and Rach has been a leader in our sector, is a better practitioner in many ways than I have been throughout my career. I watch her and learn from her every day, and yet is still asked when we go and do training. People say, we only want to hear from your lived experience, Rachel, because you don't have a formal qualification. Even though she's worked in our sector and led in our sector for 30 years and is a better practitioner than I am. And so I witnessed that, and actually she never had the opportunity to, she was trying to stay alive while the rest of us were she was literally, her life was at risk. She was trying to stay alive during the years of her, when the rest of us were doing GCSEs and qualifications. And so
sorry, can I interrupt you? So can I ask you, just before you move on from that, were they meaning we only want to hear from your lived experience because your qualifications, because you don't have any, your viewpoint can't therefore be valid.
Exactly.
Unless you're just sharing stories.
Yeah.
Is that what they were trying?
Unless sharing stories about things that happened to you.
Yes, we don't want to hear about your expertise, your life's developed knowledge.
Yeah.
How offensive. Okay.
And we see that every day. I see that every day. And she's had to walk alongside, she's had to witness, people getting jobs who weren't very good at the job. I mean, it's something I campaign on as well. Because I've witnessed it in my career. When I trained in my career, I trained in psychotherapy. It was a very extensive 7-year training. But I was working in hostels at the time watching people, the people that I learned the most for, I learned a lot in my clinical training, but let me tell you, the people that I learned the most for were often people who've been through the things themselves or didn't have a day's qualifications, but they knew what they were doing. And I still remember them now, Alistair Dinsmore, actually, I'm sure they have gone on and got qualifications, but at that time, maybe they didn't. That was, they taught me more, not from qualifications, but from their absolute expertise in the human soul. And yeah, and so I think that's one of the things I feel so strongly about, because I witness it all the time, that education is a privilege. And yeah, so it takes so much for people like Rach not to be, how does she end up with such grace in her soul? How does she end up with such generosity, kindness, reflectiveness, her bravery that I can only dream of? I have no idea, but I learn from her, honor her every single day, and I learn how to be a better person. Yeah.
Well, first of all, what's her surname so we can all look her up?
She's on LinkedIn as Rachel W. And she shares literally every single day, almost, or at least a couple of times a week, she will be sharing something from her life that will transform your understanding of social inequalities, care experience, survival of challenging experiences. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to check her out. I have so many questions, really, which is, does she, when she's faced with that kind of bigotry, is she resilient to its harm? Has she ever bought into it that, oh, I'm not valid, I can't have my voice here because I don't have the qualifications, that person's correct?
The extraordinary thing about her is, so the extraordinary thing about Rach is, and I think it's because her harm was so profound. And actually, the person that I'm going to say that I think you should talk to, if she has the time to, would be Rachel at the end of this. But the extraordinary thing is, because she faced the oppression that you and I cannot even begin to imagine from the earliest years, she found her identity from the age of about 3 or 4, from her earliest memories, in the face of oppression and brutality that you and I cannot even begin to conceive, with I'm not that. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not.
And she
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'm not identifying with that.
Yeah, that's not me. That's not on me. And she doesn't do that aggressively. She does not do that with anger. She does that from a grounded place of, she's often said to me, Felicity, I look after my side of the street. And then I don't need to get too fussed about what happens on when she's talking about integrity, she's like, I don't need to get activated about that, because I look after what's on my side of the street. I keep my own.
That's incredible.
Clean. Yeah. I act with integrity. And therefore, I don't feel threatened by your narrative of me. I mean, does she find it deeply distressing? Yes. Because we and now that, she's my partner, I witness it with her every day. Every day we notice that. And so does she find it difficult? Yes. Does that feed her? Does that make her, does that, as it would with me, does it fill me with sort of rage and despair and stop me from? No, she's had a lifetime of learning how to continue to come back home to the self, ground herself. Yeah.
Oh, she sounds incredible. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to have any kind of direct comparison in my own life, other than I have some understanding of I don't know. I describe it as being born with an angel next to me, because I went through some stuff too, and I wonder if that's a truth. I'd like to believe it. I'd like to believe that some people are born with angels next to them, because when you think about what certain children, and I might put myself in that category a little bit, have to endure, it's like there has to have been some sort of extra thing, some kind of guiding light. Or I don't want to get too deeply spiritual about it, but I've often felt that there was some energy, some force that enabled me to see the good in all, and to overcome, and to strive, and to put all of that negativity into positivity. Because it would be so tempting to spend the whole of your life going, it's what do you expect? Look at the childhood I had. I can't be held to any ambition, like you said, or any standards of integrity, and I'm just going to sit here and spit nails for the rest of my life. So I do, and I do relate on some level. I don't want to, it's for Rachel to tell me her story if we do get to speak, but I have some insight into what that's like, and I have a theory. Which is people who've had to endure really understand the human spirit, and they really see it in a completely different way, which allows, I think, I'm going to say us to see the beauty in things, the gratitude in things, the hope, the audacity of hope. I like that. Good old Barack. So I feel like I've embodied that myself, but I can't wait to meet her because I want to get deeper into that and have her tell me her story.
Yeah, and actually, and I suppose what I think about that is that, and I think that's where my therapy comes from as well, is that I remember when I was training in therapy, one of the people that I could absolutely have thanked, but she said to me, "Why did you choose to work in therapy? Why did you choose to work with people who faced the sharpest, most hopeless seeming situations and the greatest, difficulties?" And I kind of gave some facile answer, and she said, "Well, I do it because I think on some level, I hope that if I can learn to face the darkest places of other people's souls, I will learn to be able to face the darkest places in my own soul." And I loved that. And I thought that was absolutely true of me. And I think that understanding of, some people respond to suffering, or sometimes we can respond to suffering by hardening our heart. And sometimes some of us respond to suffering by, or turning away. An awful lot of people do that, and for really good and understandable reasons. And sometimes some of us and respond to suffering by going, actually, that's what gives me kinship with every other human soul on this planet. And
Yeah.
there's a lovely phrase in my therapy training that said, "I am human, and let nothing that is human be alien to me." So I I really honor that. And I've always felt that I am never any better than the people that I'm supporting, whatever crime they might have been committed as, whatever is going on for them. I know darkness and twistedness in the human soul. I know that feeling of shame or abandonment or guilt or harm or ugliness. I'm not to say that I know it in exactly the same way, but I have a flavor of what those, what getting tangled feels like, and what experiencing emotional pain and harm feels like. And that allows me to open truly to the darkest places in the human soul, and to do so with respect. Yeah.
Now, I love that you found each other as well. I think there's probably a story in that too. I don't know if how did you meet? Do you wanted to share that? So just briefly.
Yeah. Well, we met because we started to because when I was beginning my journey of training, and um so one of the things I train organizations and corporations in leadership and bringing psychologically informed leadership into their organization. But I also train health and social care, housing, criminal justice teams about how to understand, honor, and meet some of the behaviors that we might find the most scary, difficult, aggressive, and how we might bring clinical tools and techniques and knowledge of inequalities into de-escalate incidents and build relationships in the sharpest. So I always had a thing that I was like, nothing about us without us. It's not appropriate for me to simply speak from my operational and clinical expertise. It's not appropriate. I ought to be listening and learning from people themselves, and that every conversation needs to be we, not, you or they. So I was looking for somebody who was willing to take that space, and Rach was looking for somebody to deliver with, in terms of, because she brings an operational and a lived experience lens. So we brought that together. But again, her audacity of hope, throughout that, she was, our falling in love was her, I was straight when I met her, it's, and I think what Rachel brings is let no mental barrier, let no expectation get in your way.
Yeah.
We define ourselves. So
Just went with it.
just went with it. And then the
Mm.
world, the world opens up, becomes very filled with possibility, when you have the audacity to hope. Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm welcome to the club. It's a club I've newly joined.
Ah,
So I'm with my partner, Catherine, and we realised quite recently that we weren't part of any communities. We didn't know actually any other lesbian women. So we were like, maybe we should meet some. So I think you're like third, like in my whole life. It's mad, isn't it? Where are they all? That's what I want to
You
know.
know what? You've got to meet
Um,
Rach again, though, because Rach is like, again, Rachel faced so much harm and oppression as a gay woman, starting out being gay, like coming out of the care system, age 17, 18, 19. And yet her attitude to being gay is she's the best gay. She's like, Felicity, I'm the OG gay, you know. So yeah, she absolutely brings that kind of total, despite all the
yeah.
all the oppression, all the discrimination, she brings this absolute joy of she's like, it's the best thing in the world. Come and enjoy it. I love it. Yeah.
But I'm not. You can tell I'm not particularly overt in any way. Like I say, I've got a nice little cream jumper on here. So I'm not a colourful person, but I walk down the street. Catherine and I walk down the street like anyone else would, and have done from the beginning. I didn't come out till I was 50, and I thought it would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I thought it would be awkward, holding hands,
Yeah.
being affectionate with each other, just being like anybody else, any other relationship would be. And I just took to it. And I remember saying something like, I stepped out in the world as the new me and waited for everybody else to adjust. And I didn't ever, not one moment of it has felt uncomfortable for me. And I'm very lucky to be in a world or part of the world where that is possible. Um, but no, I'm a good gay.
Yeah.
Tell Rachel I'm a good gay.
Oh my.
But I'm not at all flamboyant, but, and nor is Catherine, we're very understated, but I think we're good role models in the sense of, we just are
Yeah.
and we don't think about it. And about half the time I forget I am
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it. So,
It's interesting, isn't it? Like the experience of coming out late, and again, coming out late in this country, in this time, is a very fortunate one. And I feel, I was thinking that I'm going to do a post about that because that has been hard won by by the LGBTQIA plus community
yeah,
that's come before us. And Rach was one of those people. She remembers times where you were not able to, you couldn't say at work that you were gay. She was
yeah, yeah.
actively faced all sorts of things. But, you had to like give, tiny signals that said I'm gay, that only, so that is such a position of like, it's such a testament to the people that came before us.
Absolutely.
Um,
Oh, listen,
yeah,
I'm glad you said that because I make it sound like, oh, look how easy it is. It's easy now, absolutely, because of the times we're in.
yeah,
I don't think I could have done, and obviously didn't for all those years. And my partner came out when she was 23 and faced all of those things you said. Didn't tell her employer. Didn't, really had to keep things quite low key.
yeah.
And you look back and you think, you can't imagine it. You just can't imagine it. And so no, fair play and bravo to all the men and women that came before us and went through so much so that we could have the luxury of walking down the street hand in hand and like anyone else.
And not have,
So hurrah.
it's beautiful, isn't it? It's like, and it is under threat, in different ways. So we want to like so honor that. The simplicity of what you just said is so beautiful, isn't it? We just
Yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, Rachel sounds amazing. I definitely want to meet her. All right. Anything else you want to say before we move on to number 2?
No, I think it's it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, all very well said. And if I was Rachel, I'd be blushing by now. All right. So who's number two then, please?
Number two is my amazing ex, Stuart, who I was married to and who, yeah, I just could never thank enough for. He also is someone who has some incredibly sort of like, he has high standards. And he also has a thing that says, don't settle. So, for example, when I was I was working for a local authority and they were going for a big reorganization. And I had always worked for organizations. I'd always thought, and I loved that. I loved because it allowed me to work in systemic inequalities. And I was doing a really amazingly cool job. I was head of community hubs for, we were engaging with, like, we were bringing together loads of different communities. I was listening, learning, bringing together people, and creating community health and creating environments where everybody's learning from each other. There's like 100 different nationalities in the room, like so much. So that was cool. But when that council was facing a lot of financial pressure and they were looking at reorganization, and I was, my role was like up for, you know, reorganization as well. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to just go and look somewhere else. Stuart, or Monkey as I call him, was like, and I was kind of like, I was just on the sort of bit of a treadmill of moving further up and, becoming more. And I was always trying to hold on to the magic of human beings. Like, I love human beings. That's where I'm happy. That's where um, and so I was just kind of like, right, I'm just going to have to keep on moving up, becoming more admin-y and less soul driven. And Monkey was like, why? No, do work for yourself, like, be ambitious. Why sacrifice who you are? Why not keep that following your dreams? Like, follow who you are and what you are. And I'll, that was just one of the ways that he holds out ambition and was always like, don't just sit in front of the TV. Like, what's more? What does life have to offer us? What does ambition look like? And I'm so grateful to him. I'm really grateful to him as well for, being an amazing father to our daughter. And yeah, I'll be forever grateful to him. And the other extraordinary thing about him is his pragmatism. Um, his pragmatism, you know, um, when when I met Rachel, I was in a relationship with him. I was still married. And Rachel had the audacity of going, Rachel had the audacity of going, what if we could, what if we could be a couple? And I had, and Monkey had the pragmatism of going, I care about our daughter. I care about our continuing relationship. I care about making a life that is good for all of us, and responded to that with huge grace and huge and the pragmatism, because he's someone who is like, and he really teaches me about that he's always had a thing of like, don't let pride, ego be the enemy of a good life. So he's like, how do we live a good life? What does that look like together? And I will be forever appreciative of that, but also educated by that. But he's like, what's the important thing here? What does a good life look like? Not what do pride and egos look like, or, and how do we forge a good life together? So, for example, we're all moving to the same city. We're continuing to forge like what our blended family looks like. And that's not always easy. And in fact, you know, a bit like I look at Rach and think, God, how do you manage to be so thoughtful, and how do you manage to be so resourceful and still find good and truth in the face of challenge? And she does that in, like, you know, a very visionary way. Monk does that in a visionary way, but also like in such a pragmatic way. So I feel so great. You know, he's so pragmatic. He's like, what matters here? Let's follow that. And I feel very grateful and appreciative to continue to have him in my life, and to continue to, you know, to work our blended family. And I really learn from him as well. So I think, yes, I'm really grateful to him as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, so many things here as well. So, well, we can't let the monkey thing go. What's that all about?
Well, the funny thing is that he's like the least monkeyish person, but he's quite gruff. Um, but so it's always tickled me. But what's so beautiful, he's also very playful as well. So I think, you know, in our group of mutual friends, pretty much everyone calls him Monkey.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to be called something like that. I think it's quite nice. All right. And, you know, that idea of grace and pragmatism being in the same sort of kind of breath, if you like, you know, that is a rare story. I mean, I don't know, actually, can I share a little bit about mine?
Yeah.
Because it's not that dissimilar.
Yeah.
So I was with my ex for 33 years, Felicity. I know what you're going to say. You're not old enough. I go, yes, I know.
No, yeah.
No, well, we met at 16, and you know, at 16 is like, what do you know about love, really? You know how to send lovely little notes to each other in our pencil cases for school every day, and it was a lovely, lovely relationship all the way through. To be honest, it was always very, you know, I hope Neil won't mind me saying, but always sort of sweet, really. We were always sweet, like childhood sweethearts would be.
Yeah.
But there was, you know, obviously from my side, there was always some sort of rub, if you like, and me going, oh, I start feeling this jumper doesn't quite fit me.
Yeah.
Even though it's a very comfortable jumper, it doesn't quite fit. And I've told my story in my book, and I've told it in sort of snippets on this thing, but it's like, there was always a little agitation, but I always was so confused by it because I didn't have a mother. Obviously, I was born to one, but I didn't know her.
Yeah.
And my dad never remarried, so I had no females in my life, and so I just assumed my sort of attraction was very maternal. And then there was this kind of small period of time of Neil and I just talking about and saying, look, let's, you know, we had kind of come to a place of amicable understanding that we should probably separate as a partnership, but obviously we're still co-parenting our children. It was all very sort of being worked through. And then suddenly Catherine steps into my life, and very similarly, Neil just basically looked at me and went, I could see you two together. I actually can see it. And we hadn't, up until that moment, we hadn't even talked about it. I haven't really even spoken to him about sexuality or anything like that. We were just amicably separating slowly over time.
Yeah.
And he said, and if that were the case, you'd absolutely get my blessing. And he stood by that all these years.
Wow.
So we've been together 5 years now.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's hard, but the blended family is kind of slowly working.
Yeah.
And everyone's finding their place.
Yeah.
And Neil has had nothing but dignity, and kindness towards us.
Yeah.
Which, you know, has made everything so much easier. We can all walk around in comfort for that generosity.
Yeah.
And for the children, you know, I have 2 children, and there hasn't been a day of discomfort for anybody since we all kind of stepped into our new relationship. So, you know, I Stuart, Neil, you know, well, you know, thank you. It's not a small thing to support people like us to go and live our authentic lives and be truly happy. It's a hugely generous thing to do.
And may we all like learn from that grace and embody that grace. And I really hope that, yeah, I love that story. That's beautiful, isn't it? And it is truly is grace. And I hope, and yeah, I hope I will embody similar. Yeah.
Oh, we're lucky. We're lucky ladies, Felicity. Oh, well done, monkey. I'd like to meet you too.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
All right. Anything more you want to say about him before we move on? Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, no, only to say that he's, a brilliant, he's a brilliant life coach. My daughter pointed out the other day that she now has an entire family of therapists, life coaches.
No excuses then.
Yeah.
No excuses, daughter. You better be a rip-roaring success in life because you've had all this wonderful support. No, I'm only kidding. All right, brilliant. Well, who is number 3 then, please?
Well, actually, funny enough, number 3 is my daughter.
Yay.
Yeah.
Nice little segue.
Yeah. She's so, in some ways, she's so different from me. She's resolutely her own person. She's got some of like my female side of the family's eccentricity and flamboyance, and wickedness, in her humor, which I adore and I love. And also, we are life companions, so we travel through these things, through life together, and that doesn't mean it's always easy. So, for example, that journey together is that we're on now of like making our blended family, and the shifts for her in that, those are tricky, but she calls me to myself. There's no bullshit allowed. There's no, we have to work things out together. When we come to ruptures together, every single time we have to bring our whole self. Every single time I have to learn. Every single time I have to learn, how do I bring all my courage to bear? How do I bring all my authenticity? I can't be fake in this place. So, like, for example, on this journey of making our blended family, sometimes I found myself, because I worry about upsetting her, or worry about the impact that I've had, I can go into a sort of slightly appeasing place where I have allowed her to say, oh, I'm not very well today, so I won't go to my dance class, or, I'm not well enough to, these little pushes that say, oh, I'm not well enough to do that, or I'm feeling sad, so I can't do that. And my urge as a human being is sometimes to appease, that's sometimes my threat response. And then, but then I witness, like, I love looking at like Monkey and the way that he parents, where he's like, you go to dance class whether you're feeling happy or sad. I listen to Rach as well with her wonderful with her grounded, she's an expert practitioner with children. So she's like, she has her kind of knowledge and awareness, like maybe slightly a softer, gentler one than Monkey brings. But again, this kind of, this knowledge and insight of like noticing where I'm getting like pushed a little bit. And then when that happens, I have to come back to the table with Scruff, as I call her, and I have to name it. And then we have to and then she shares what's going on for her, and like, well, I'm keyed off at you for this, or, well, this isn't fair, and we have to like wrangle it out together, and then at the end of it, like I have to bring my whole self, she has to bring her whole self, and together we come out a better person. And like my favorite sort of thinker and teacher in the world is Pema Chodron. I don't know if you're aware of her. You would love her.
No.
But one of the things, I'm going to share that with you, because she is in my most dysregulated, in my most torn up, tangled, messy place. I can hear Pema Chodron's, I can hear her, I can listen to her. She's got a very human way of talking. One of the things that she says is, this is the path. It is so tempting to think, if only, you'd stop being annoying, if only school was better, if only work was better, if only I wasn't worried about money, if only I wasn't worried about, if only this person wasn't being a knob, then I'd be able to meditate, practice, feel okay. Pema Chodron says this is the path. That person annoying you, that's your guru. This is the path with all that mess. And so I kind of go, Scruff and I, like we tangle, we love, we figure this is the path. And she teaches me more, I think, than anybody else on that list. And I'll always be grateful to her for that. And to witness this little guy on her journey with such grace. Yeah.
Oh, listen, I'm smiling all the way because Scruff sounds an awful lot like my daughter. How old is Scruff, firstly?
She's 11.
11? Gosh, that's some wisdom
Oh,
already. Well, I mean, obviously, a chip off the old block. But there's something about the challenge of children, and I mean that in the sense of them being challengers. Like I like what you said. There's no bullshit there. It's such a unique mirror. Having a child look back at you and know with such knowing, and there's such a kind of an energetic field between you that you just can't BS them. You can't, and they know so much about you, even if they are 11. They are made from our bodies. They it's an extraordinary relationship, and I think particularly mothers and daughters, it's an extraordinary relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it is designed to challenge us and make us think about who we are and our relationships. So I like the sound of her very much.
Sorry about her as well. Sorry to interrupt. That I was just thinking.
Not at all.
That's some of the challenges she brings, but I'm also like, I've had to learn. So, for example, I'm like a compulsive extrovert. So if there's a party, I'll be right in the middle of it. If there's and I think there's a huge value on that stuff in our culture. It's almost as if that's a moral good. And I have like walked that privilege, even though I've had a lot, without even thinking about it. Now then I've had to learn from Hood or Scruff or whoever we call her.
So many names.
Yeah, she works very differently. She doesn't want to do that. When she goes to a party, she doesn't want to be the person in the middle. She takes a long time to offer that affection. And actually, it's really taught me to really question, there's that lovely book, I think it's called Quiet, but it's really taught me to challenge and question and disrupt that cultural assumption that extrovert is good. I don't subscribe to that anymore. Not that I was like a massive subscriber, but I recognize now how that threads silently and oppressively through our culture. And I'm like, no, man, every personality is unique, gorgeous, and different. And, loud or confident is not that, is not.
Yeah. I've learned something recently. I've learned that I used to be very extrovert. And I remember there's definitely a tipping point where I stopped being extrovert for myself and started being extrovert for other people. And what I mean by that is, I know now with my years on this planet that the best kind of extroversion, in my opinion, is where you use your natural confidence and charisma to be helpful to the room, to the person in front of you, to the situation. And I find myself doing that a lot. In my day-to-day is like how to warm up a situation, a room, a meeting, a dinner. But it's definitely from a place now of how can I be helpful here? How can I take the lead to give everyone permission to kind of engage? Excuse me. As opposed to, hey, look at me, I'm bright and shiny, and I'm clever, and I'm funny, and all this, silly thing I told myself. And I think back then I thought I should do all those things so that people would like me. Now, because I like myself very much, it comes much more from a place of, I have these attributes, I have these skills. I think it could be useful in this moment. Let's be useful. So it's definitely a conscious thing I'm doing, but it's for a very different reason now. So I don't, I'm an extrovert introvert then.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like, I suppose that's it's being intentional, isn't it? You know, and I think that's exactly right. And intentionally and humbly going. And there are things which other people bring that I'm not so good at bringing.
Oh,
You know,
completely.
and that will open up the space in a completely different way. And like, I often notice that people who, you know, people who are not, people who bring, like, you know, like Kud is very good at, like, assertive. She's amazingly assertive. I love it. She's really good at calling bullshit. You know, she'll spot it a mile off. You know, yeah, there's something about, like, just taking, I think for me, the journey's maybe a little bit about, like, yeah, so number one, I think, like, I always have a thing where I'm just, like, so playful. So my extroversion, it's sometimes, how do I serve? And then sometimes it, what happens if this is I love that. And then I think my journey's maybe been about learning to honor what different stuff looks like. So instead of just going, oh, it's, you know, this is great. I think, I hope, I believe I'm on a journey of, and I think that's come from my leadership experience as well, of, like, learning that when I started in leadership, I thought I had the best ideas in the room. And then over the years, realizing, no, and actually a lot of your job is,
Yeah.
as you said, like, oh, actually it's my job to bring out other people's, but also it's my job to
Absolutely.
be really bloody humble, because
Yeah.
really a space is working right where everybody's shining for exactly who they are. And if, and that's what's an enriched space, is not me. Yeah, it's not a me part.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a me party. I like that. No, I'm glad we've. One second. It's not helpful. Neil, edit this out. So the other thing I wanted to say, and I'm glad we've continued the conversation, because I like what you said there about it's not a me party, and I think that comes with wisdom. I think it has in my case, but I realize why I do it is exactly what you said. I do it to bring forth the people who can add the thing that I can't add.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm not a technical expert in anything.
Yeah.
I know a lot of things. I mean, I've lived a life, I've run many companies, I've led a life, you know, I
Yeah.
have a lot of general knowledge, but I do love an expert. I love it. And I love to draw experts into the conversation. I love to bring the quieter voices. I like to hear all the people's opinions, and I'm very, very collaborative like that. And I do think I've got a gift for creating warmth in a room such that people feel safe to be themselves. I think that's really is something I do very well.
Yes.
And I also use humor a lot, because it's a skill. Not everyone can do it. And I think it's a little skill of mine, that and a technique to say, everyone relax.
Yeah.
We can have fun here and talk about serious things, but we can have fun here too, and we can be human with each other. So, you know, I think we're very similar in that way.
I sometimes think actually that's one of the ADHD gifts, you know, that I think that's exactly. And again, it's a bit like, you know, it's a bit like that. The guy who was like, you know, don't bring love. There's a similar sort of silent thing that says, you know, grown up spaces are not ridiculous spaces, are not playful spaces, are not anarchic spaces. And I'm like, I completely am of your view, that I'm like, hey man, that's exactly where psychological safety comes, you know,
yes.
or one of those key ingredients. I'm like, and again, I feel like that's a kind of audacity of hope thing of, like, why is it
Yeah.
got to be boring, guys? What if it was
Yeah.
fun? And what if it was wholehearted? Wouldn't we all be so much more, you know, into what we're doing if we bring fun, love, joy, play? You know, that's been a lot of my clinical stuff. You know, a lot of the training and the teaching and the systems change is, like, all of the stuff, that kind of white male paternalistic stuff that got excluded from formal spaces, turns out to be the very stuff that keeps us living, breathing on this planet, that keeps us focused, that keeps us passionate, that stops us from burning out. Let's bring it the hay back in. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, count me in. Count me as part of that gang. And you have to spell this lady's name for me. Pima
Yeah,
Chodron.
Chodron,
I wrote down.
Chodr. Chodon. Her first name is
Chodon.
single O, Chodron, and her first name is Pema.
Got it. I got almost that right, apart from the I at the end I put, but it's an O. All right, super. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Oh, I've mistimed that question, didn't I? You were having a little snack there.
Little nut.
I'll keep going until you finished.
Yeah. Okay, so number 4 is I wanted to say my mum.
All right.
It's her that, and I think that kind of spirit of, I come from very middle to upper class family, and with all the kind of in a social circle, in those social circles, I personally can sometimes find that's class space. Oh, for some reason I've never felt terribly at home there, and I can find it quite an arid space. I think it's maybe because in those circles, in my experience, people often don't talk about the messy bits. They don't talk about shame, pain, mess. There's often like people get a little bit tight-lipped about all the messy bits. And that's never been when I'm, a bit like what we're saying. Hello, little friend.
Oh, can you see her?
Yes, isn't she gorgeous? Hello.
She is. That's Maggie. Maggie's famous. She's famous for being in every single podcast. She knows that she loves, me. She knows I'm going to be sitting still for a while, you see. So she quite likes them. But I might have to can we just pause it? Because I think her little dog walker's just arrived. Yes, well, thank you, Maggie, for that little interlude. We're now back in the room. Like I say, she completely dominates everything I do, particularly my podcasting life. So sorry about that. Felicity should. Well, we were talking about your mum and how you found the social circles you're in were a little bit, I think I wrote the word arid down. And I think you were going on to explain a little bit more about that. So if we can pick up there.
I think that my mum has always had a sort of, and it's a sort of slightly anarchic quality that I kind of trace all the way down the women, the matrilineal line. But my mum has always had like a great passion to explore beyond the bounds of our narrow class, which I appreciate. And it was her that's also been like really passionate about a career. She's been a teacher of the deaf, and she's always been really passionate about the joy that being of service brings.
And did you say teacher of the deaf?
Of deaf.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
People with deaf. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, I think, and also, you notice the books right off. I mean, my mum and my dad as well, but particularly my mum has always introduced books and literature to us as the place where for her growing up, I think she kind of hid from some of the, challenges of, like, she went to boarding school when she was 7. I think that although she has a really rosy picture of that now, I think that had some obvious challenges in terms of, friends and not sometimes feeling like she wasn't fitting in. At one point, she was the youngest child. And so for her, books were an escape. And, so I sit surrounded by books, and I think that gift that she gave us, and my dad as well, but the gift of language, literature, allowed me to put words to things that, with the sort of emotional challenges that I was facing, if I didn't have language, I think I would have got a lot stuck at. And for her, books have been an escape. They've been a resource. They've been, she describes books as a friend. And the ability to, like, move into another world, inhabit other worlds, empathize with people, explore worlds that and identities that you would never have done otherwise. And she's done that by sort of moving beyond, class expectations. And again, like, even my mum and dad, despite the fact that in my experience, and I will, humbly be corrected by, but in my experience, my class can be very closed in terms of, allowing in different kinds of experience. There can be quite a lot of snobbery. There can be, racism, sexism, ableism, lots of them,
Mm.
and I'm sure lots of classes have that, but I think I obviously have noted that particularly because that's been my experience. And also and not recognizing our own privilege as well, and just thinking it's sort of God-given right that we're maybe a little bit better than everybody else. I think what's cool is that my mum has not embodied that. She's had a
Mm.
different view on that. And that was been really helpful to me. I'm really conscious of the fact that, I'm really appreciative that when I said I've got together with Rachel, for example, my mum's 83, like she never ever brought homophobia. She never had any of that.
Mm.
She never, and the same thing, I think she's never brought racism. She's not brought, and I'm really grateful to that. Yeah, I'm really grateful to that. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for her ability to take a slight outside edge on some of the assumptions and behaviors that I can see in our class. And the
Mm.
other thing I'm really grateful for, because it's the biggest gift that she's given me, I think, is my mum is very non-defensive. So if I say to my mum, hey, you did this thing and it was difficult, she never gets defensive. I know so many parents that their child has said to them, I've heard it so many times. I've listened to parents saying, my child, I remember hearing a friend say, my child wrote me a letter, an extraordinary letter, and told me all the things that I'd done wrong as a child. Well, he's gone mad. I said to
Mm.
him, I'm not taking any of that. And I think, my God, it makes me feel like almost sick to my core to hear that. My mum never does that. If I say to
Mm.
her, "You did this thing and it hurt or it's difficult, it wasn't okay," she does not defend. And I'm glad to say I have that. And I'm glad to say that my daughter has that as well. If you bring me something that I didn't get right, I will almost inevitably welcome and thank you for the information and use
Mm.
it to correct. And I'm like, those are beautiful qualities. Yeah.
But I associate that with safety. I know exactly what you mean. The people I feel most safe with, I can receive anything as input. Almost anything. I see it as a gift. I go, "Oh, thank you for caring enough to tell me. Thank you for investing in my ability to, ability to change." But it is only in the relationships where I feel completely safe within. So I think there's definitely a correlation. So obviously, what you've created within your 3 generations of women is that safety between you, where you can. Because I always think people. Why do people defend? Was because they feel attacked, and
That's
and so.
true, but yeah, but I see so many people who, and actually I think, how do you create that safety? I think you create that safety by being correctable yourself.
Oh, no, of
That's what
course.
brings our training. But I do think I see a lot of people, so many people who just don't like hearing what they're not getting right. And even when would I go so far as say
Yeah.
most people do not like hearing what they're not getting right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Isn't that interesting? But okay, so obviously, like, I'm a human being, and I'm sitting there thinking, God, what do I do? Hmm. I'm sure everyone listening now is going, what am I like? Do I defend? Do I attack? Do I, when someone tells me there's something I haven't done well or I haven't done right? I'd
I
like to
love
think,
your vision. I love your vision of saying, so sorry to cut in, it's such an
"Mm,
ADHD thing. When I was just slowly processing what you just said, and I loved your vision of going, thank you for investing in my ability to change. I think this is
yeah,
such a lovely reframe. And that's such a beautiful testament to you and to the safe spaces that you create. I hope that people hear that and go, because unfortunately, I would say, and I say this with love because I love people, but I would say probably 90% of people do not like hearing and will be defensive to the stuff that they could do better. Yeah.
yeah, interesting." I'm going to really ponder that now. I think in certain relationships, it works well. My daughter and I, for example, we can say that
Yeah.
anything to each other. But at others, I'm going to have a little think about that. Thank you for that. I'm going to do that. All right. Well, listen, Mum, she's sounds incredible too. I mean, to break from your class expectations in any direction is hard. You know, to not just conform and fit in is hard. I love the fact she's a teacher of the deaf. I think that's really must be incredibly rewarding and very, very honourable thing to do. And I love that she's introduced you to books. And I do worry a bit about this generation that doesn't read books. It reads things, but it doesn't read books. Because you're right, the transformation that you can go through by teleporting yourself into somebody else's life, even if you're not naturally empathetic, you can be cognitively empathetic if you take the time to read somebody else's story, fiction or otherwise. There's something about immersing yourself briefly in somebody else's life. It's the nearest thing to, dreams, isn't it? Where you're experiencing something that you didn't actually do, but you're still experiencing it. So I love books. My eyesight's not quite what it was, so I'm struggling a bit at the moment with books. So I've had to go to audiobooks, which isn't quite the same. But I think I love that she's brought that to you. And by the tens of thousands of books behind your head, obviously, the whole thing's stuck. So I really like the sound of Mum. All right, last one then, finale, number 5.
Number 5, I think, would probably be one of my first managers in my field, a guy called Len Charles, who taught me how to be a leader and also how to. Number one, he believed in me. He appointed me as a manager when I had very little experience, knowledge, or skills. So thanks, Len. He took a chance on an unproven kid. But number 2, he taught me how to lead and also how to face the most challenging human situations. I remember, and the biggest thing he taught me was, and I started working in homeless hostels at a time when my mental health was very, very poor. Like, I was in such a state. I was so anxious, I could barely function, and I was very defended against all the ways that I was not coping, didn't want to hear it, didn't want to pretend I was okay. But that job, I had so many. And he appointed me, and I was sort of manager of all the support services of this enormous homeless hostel. It was like 188 beds or something. It was like really big. There was a homeless hostel, there was a mental health project, there was it was a lot. And it was a really scary environment. I found it a really scary environment. I remember when I came in on the first day and I heard this banging and crashing and shouting and smashing. And I wanted to hide under the desk. And then someone said, "Oh, and they named a person. And I looked at the board and I was like, that's my bloody client. I've got to go out and, oh my God. So I just went out, but it was, do you know what? It was, and when I went out, I was so scared. It was unreal. Coming from, my extremely privileged, protected background, I had no idea. I was terrified. Anyway, the person that I spoke to was actually the most wonderful man who I remember with so much love now. And of course, actually what I learned immediately was he was extremely distressed and for really bloody good reason. And so it taught me, and what that job taught me and Len taught me was I had so many nights where I went to bed scared for the next morning. Like, I remember there was a time that a guy set the place on fire and then started trying to smash his way through into the staff office. And the police wouldn't come because I think the police were a bit kind of nervous of the place. So they never used to come. And he started smashing his way to the office. And my staff member turned to me and said, "What are we going to do when he gets through the door?" And I said,
God.
I was the manager. And I was like, I guess we'll run. Anyway, but there were so many nights that, I would go to bed and I'd think, I have no idea how to handle this situation. You could never predict what was happening. I remember coming into work one Monday And the facilities manager had sent me 17 photographs of some human excrement in a little carrier bag that someone had been throwing out their window. You could never predict it, and it was
Oh my
wonderful.
goodness.
It was really good for the brain and very good for someone who was gripped by anxiety, because I just learned that the best, and as a psychotherapist, you now know the best trick for anxiety is you've got to face the anxiety. You've got to come in and face the damn music. And every time you do that, you get stronger. And Len taught me to do that. I watched him, like, every time something kicked off, he bounced up the stairs, and he'd be like, Felicity, you've got to show people that you're not scared, because if you're scared, this place becomes an absolute, like, bear pit. So he taught me that, if something's kicking off in the hostel, as the manager, you are the first one in the room. I watched him leap across the reception desk, scissor kick across the reception desk, and break up a fight between two, like, enormous men in my first week. And that's what taught me, if something, and now I do it as an absolute reflex, if something is difficult, you walk straight into the fire, every time, straight into the fire. And Len, he is a beautiful, wise, brilliant person. And I will never stop thanking him for what he taught me about management leadership, about working in, like, scary environments, which were actually, beautiful environments as well, as I learned to, but also in terms of how as a human being to face the things that frighten me. So I think, Len's got to be there.
Gosh, he's given you so much, hasn't he? Well, first of all, how old would you have been at this time?
I was in my early 20s.
Gosh.
I was about 23, 24, 25, those years.
I mean, yeah, and that's a lot to take on. But I can totally picture you leaning into his strength, his confidence, his sort of conviction about what it ought to look like. And I think when you've got someone like that showing you the way, it's a little bit copy it until you can just take it on board, isn't it?
And he
So I think,
always showed, like, absolute respect as well. And that he taught me, as did so many other, I mentioned a guy called Alistair Dinsmore, who I have lost touch with, but would love to thank. I remember when he would show me, because we would have to have these really scary, sometimes, conversations. If something had kicked off, really, if something had kicked off, then we would have to call that person down, have a conversation. And you did not know where that conversation was going to land up, but you showed no fear. And actually what he showed me was that he would go into every conversation, and every single time the people that we were supporting were beautiful, extraordinary human beings. And not, don't let fear and prejudice rule about, he absolutely taught me that. But he would start every conversation, the most difficult conversation, by leaning forward and saying to the person, first of all, I really want to let you know you're a very well respected resident of this place. You're very well respected. You're very important in this community. And in doing so, the person would
just calmed.
settle, of course. And they were important. And my silly fear was not, not right. It was like some white fragility, some class fragility, and so, he modeled, you bring respect, you start from love and respect. And no matter how many things were kicking off, no matter how heightened we were, he would come with, I've got all the time in the world for you, and you are the most well-respected person in this room. Let's get going. And for that, I thank him so much. Yeah, beautiful.
I mean, there's such wonderful leadership skills embedded in, well, kind of, sort of, I don't know why I've got this image, but it's almost like he's had it branded in him, like a cow is branded. It's almost like he's gone through so many things. It's actually in his DNA now to have that as a reflex. It's like, I think when you're dealing with, well, I don't know, I don't have this experience, but when you're dealing with some of the most frightened, vulnerable, confused, I mean, I imagine being homeless as being one of the most terrifying things of a human being. We are designed to have shelter.
Yes. Yeah.
We're hardwired to seek comfort and connection with our community.
Yeah.
So let alone the physical ramifications of being homeless, the emotional disconnection and sort of distress you must feel. And to have that humanity and say, you are respected, you are listened to, you are important, must mean the world to those people, as well as being a wonderful diffuser. So he's a very special man.
Right. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've done the 5. My feelings, or what's coming through from me here is that, we talked right at the beginning about soul journeys, and I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about all these extremely soulful people that you have attracted into your life, and of course, you therefore are by definition a fellow soulful person. Um, and I can pick through, and I always summarize the 5 with where I feel the person I'm now meeting. Obviously, I don't know you very well, but the person I'm now meeting, there's some of the qualities that are shining through from this influence. Because it's not just about, this podcast is not just about honoring the people that matter. It's about recognition of their input in you, in the person you are now. So can you think of anything that you can directly take from these 5 and say, I have embodied these things. These are now in me. I am that person because of their influence.
I think that, for all of them, I can say because of Len, I start every conversation with honor and respect and signaling to the most tricky, the most risky, the most challenging. And all of my training start with honor, respect, and humility. Because of Rach, I believe like I am becoming braver every day, and she teaches me how to be brave. I don't want to say that that's something that, I don't want to lay claim to that, but I know it's something that I hope to inhabit because of, because of all of the people that have shaped me. Well, and because of the people that I've served, my commitment to calling out inequality and never flying from that, never just seeing it as, oh, that is something that runs through me like, Brighton Rock. And I'm really grateful that, being with Rach now, I inhabit that in my personal, professional life, and that appreciation and opening up to that stuff. I think, I have my love of books and stories. I have my, I have my anarchic spirit that says, if there's a space with a set of expectations, I'm going to disrupt it or stand outside it or, moon it. And I think, Rach and Monkey, like bring that, set your standards high, man. Set them high, the audacity of hope. And like finally, of course, like Scruff, like who grounds me, who teaches me, what a privilege to witness a human soul on their journey and to learn together. Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing summary. Oh, yes. I bet they're all, I wonder, I mean, I hope you do send this to them all. And I often wonder, like I say, when I got that email this morning, how it is received and how people respond to when they're spoken of in such warm terms. Certainly something, again, a sort of secret part of why I do what I do is I suppose one day I might find out or overhear or find some mechanism of being spoken well of. And I think I do aspire to that, not in a transactional way, but in a truthful way. Like to be well spoken of, I still see that as the greatest of riches, if you like. If you want to measure success, to be spoken well of is the ultimate to me of success.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, all the people on your list should be very happy to hear all of that. Well, listen, it's been an absolute joy to speak to you. I know that the last question is always, who shall I speak to next and why? And it's basically Rachel W. And if you're listening, Rachel, please say yes. I'd love to meet you and talk through your 5.
I mean,
but let's see.
Just on that as well, Rachel does like keynotes. She does all sorts of, helping people. So anyone who wants to understand how to face the sharpest challenges that life brings and meet them with love and groundedness and hope, then please, like, you can stand to learn from no one better than Rach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to point everyone to her now anyway. So I hope to get to meet him myself. But listen, it's been an absolute joy, Felicity. I knew it would be. Thank you for bringing all your energy, your wisdom, your depth, your understanding of human beings. Humans are obviously my favourite thing too, hence doing this little thing. It's always a joy to meet like-minded people in that way. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. So that was the wonderful Felicity Reed. I'm always impressed with people who've dedicated their entire lives in the service of others. I mean, there's just something amazing about that, and to discover that so early on in your life as your calling. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, get involved somehow. I really love it when you do. What do I have for you next week? Well, I have Julian Lorenzo. And what can I say? This man is living all our lives, all our dream lives. I think he surfs every morning. And the backdrop, when I looked at the back of his window, I think when he was first setting up, I was like, is that your life? So yes, he's based in Brazil. And if you tell someone that you surf every morning, you know it's in their backyard, right? So yeah, Julia's living all our lives. You're going to be very, very jealous, but also you're going to just love him. So looking forward to introducing you to him. Until then, have a great week ahead, and I'll see you next time. See you. Bye.